So we're diving into a real David and Goliath story here. It's one tenant in a fancy NYC apartment building up against a huge global real estate company. And let me tell you, this story really gets into how incredibly personal and just messy the fight for your rights as a tenant can become.
Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. That's the real human cost we're talking about here. And according to the tenant, this entire personal crisis, this whole nightmare, it all kicked off because of one single, frankly, unbelievable bill.
$2,740.93 for 1 month of electricity. You heard that right. It's a number so insane that it triggered a complete, devastating chain reaction in this guy's life. So yeah, let's get into how this all went down.
Okay, so to really get what's going on, you need to understand the setup. This tenant, he's an Australian detective here on a work visa. And he had a pretty sweet deal, right? His employer was paying for his rent, his power, even his internet. Now, why would they do that? Well, because the apartment wasn't just his home, it was also the company's office space. A co-working space, basically.
And bam, that one crazy high utility bill comes in, and his employer just pulls the plug. They stop paying for everything, all of it. For the tenant, that meant his income instantly dropped by about $8,000 a month. Can you imagine? It threw his entire life, personal and professional, into a total tailspin. So the big question is, where did this insane bill even come from?
All right, so the building itself is a swanky high-rise called the Eugene. It's managed by this real estate behemoth, Brookfield Properties. The bill, though, came from a company called Metergy Solutions. So on the surface, it looks like two separate companies, right? Landlord over here, utility company over there.
Well, not so fast. When you dig into the paperwork, you find something interesting, a really crucial connection. Turns out, Brookfield Properties, the landlord, also owns Metergy Solutions, the utility company. They're one and the same.
And that right there is the million-dollar question in this whole mess, isn't it? What happens when the company you pay rent to is also the company sending you that massive power bill? Is that a conflict of interest? To even begin to answer that, we've got to do what you always have to do. Look at the lease.
And here it is, the battleground. The lease agreement. You know the type. Pages and pages of dense legal jargon. And let's be real, these things are written for one reason and one reason only, to protect the owner.
So let's just pull out one little piece of this puzzle. This is from the section on the owner's liability. It's a lot to read, a total wall of text. But the key part is where it basically says the owner isn't responsible for anything, damage to your stuff, even theft, unless, and this is the kicker, unless you, the tenant, can prove gross negligence. So what does that mean in plain English? It means pretty much everything is on you. The risk is all yours. Something goes wrong, your problem. Someone breaks in and steals your stuff, your problem. The only way it's their problem is if you can somehow prove gross negligence, which, let me tell you, is an incredibly high bar to clear in court. The whole thing is designed to shift all the responsibility away from them and onto you.
And the fallout, man, the tenant describes a total collapse. It wasn't just financial. His wife and daughter left the country. He ended up in therapy on antidepressants for the first time in his life. His work suffered so badly he was close to getting fired. His company was on the brink of bankruptcy. And on top of all that, his visa to even be in the U.S. was hanging by a thread, a complete and total nightmare. But it didn't stop there. The situation got even uglier. The tenant alleges that after he helped another tenant out in housing court, the building management came after him. How? By revoking his access to all the common areas. The gym, the lounge, everything.
And this is the part that's just, wow. They even allegedly took away his access to the children's playroom, so his own daughter couldn't even use it anymore. In his own words, it was just low. A really petty, cruel move.
So you hear all that and you think, what can one person even do against all this? How do you fight back? Well, the source material lays out a pretty clear strategy. It starts, as it always should, with documenting absolutely everything. And then you start filing formal complaints.
One of the most powerful tools a tenant has is something called the warranty of habitability. It's a fancy legal term, but it's simple. Your landlord has a legal duty to make sure your apartment is safe and livable. Period. So when the tenant claims there were things like faulty AC or even dangerous wiring, that's a potential direct violation of this fundamental guarantee.
And then there's consumer fraud. This is all about going after shady business practices. And you can see how this applies here, right? We're talking about allegations of ridiculously inflated utility bills. And that claim gets a whole lot more potent when you remember, oh yeah, the landlord is the utility company.
So that's where we are now, a total standoff. For the tenant,
His entire life is on the line. His home, his family, his job, his ability to stay in the country. But don't forget, the corporation has a ton to lose too. We're talking huge financial penalties, a swarm of regulators digging into their business, and a massive hit to their public image.
And really, this whole insane story boils down to one massive question. In a system that's built on these ironclad contracts and run by giant corporations, what's one person's voice really worth? What power does a single tenant actually have? This case, right here, is putting that question to the ultimate test.